first question was, do the kids bring their own horses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, all the kids that do a roping event, they all bring their own horses to compete on, and most of them are at a pretty high level when they get to this point already. So they have some pretty good horses and good skills. A lot of times, these kids will bring some horses that aren't quite finished yet, and just to get some extra practice on. You can only do so much on your good horses before they wear out, and when we practice every day, or 4 days a week, and then we rodeo on the weekends, you don't, those really good athlete horses, you don't want to overdo it on them, because they get tired and sore just like we, just like any athlete would too. So sometimes in the rodeo world, we have some extra horses around that we either train to maybe they potentially get better and be a top-notch horse for us to compete on. If not, we'll use them for our advantage to get extra practice.
Okay. So we were out at CJ Kinsolving's ranch and watched him work some cows.
Yes, ma'am.
And so they're roping. How does that kind of roping differ from like competitive roping?
When you're at a ranch and they're roping, they're usually dragging calves to be branded and stuff like that. So the horse, you need the horses to not be scared of the rope and not to be able to maneuver them in a way that you can do the job that you're doing with them. When you get inside the arena in events like this, they need to know how to follow behind the animal, whether it's a steer or a calf. Like Clay he was riding in a certain spot, 10 feet back and 10 feet wide of that steer, and that horse, to be trained as a head horse, needs to stay in that spot. And that as you're running down the arena, he could throw at any time that he wanted to. So once we get inside the arena, we kind of tailor a horse to us more specific events.
Okay. And with the roping, we noticed at the ranch they were roping the legs, like you said, and then dragging them. But here he was going for like the horns. Mm-hmm. So why would you rope for different areas of the...
It just depends on what you're doing. Say at the ranch, for example, when they rope a calf by their back feet and they drag them to the fire by their back feet, it's actually less stressful on the calf to hitch a ride by the rope by their back feet, just to drag them along the ground, and it's actually less stressful. When the crew on the ground flanks them and gets them ready to be branded, it's actually less stressful on the calf. Inside the arena, what Clay was doing, he was roping the head, and that's just the team roping event.
Okay.
So that's why he would rope the head, and then when we turn the corner, someone else would come in and rope the feet.
Okay.
And you'd stop the clock. And honestly, that team roping event, as far as cowboy work, you would do that in a great big pasture. If you had to doctor a sick calf or a sick cow, you would rope the head, and somebody would come in and rope the feet, and that's the least stressful way to doctor out in a great big pasture.
Okay, but for branding, the feet and dragging is the easiest, quickest, maybe.
Yeah. So
how do you guys train at all to rope the feet? I mean, is that something you would do, or is that more of a ranch?
That's what I do.
Okay.
So Clay has kind of tailored his events to calf roping or tie down roping inside the arena. That's his go-to event, but he also likes to head steers. And I am a little bit different. I like to heel steers, so I practice the heel loop, and
head and heel. I get it. Okay, sorry, yeah. I am not I'm from Chicago. I don't know these things.
No, that's great.
So like would you train on that same dummy?
Yes, ma'am. I would.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
And so you seen the feet were hopping on that dummy? That's kind of mimics what a steer does when the steer hops.
Okay.
And so these machines that we purchased these because you don't have to feed them. You don't have to, and they're better for training purposes.
Sure.
I can control exactly how fast we go. I can control where we turn. And when you're dealing with a live animal, there's a lot more going on. That steer could step left, he could step right, and we're just gaining that horse's confidence right now, so that someday when he's ready for that next level, we actually start tracking live cattle, that he understands kind of where he's supposed to be. And team roping itself is such an interesting event because, we're going to watch Jake get on a couple practice bulls here in a few minutes, but Jake trains himself. That's it. He trains on a mechanical dummy that bucks up and down. Team roping's completely different because you got 5 brains running down the arena. You got the header and his horse, that's 2. You got the heeler and his horse, that's 2. And then you got a steer that kind of control wherever he goes. That dictates where the header goes to.
Sure.
And then the header, when the header ropes, he dallies around the saddle horn, and the amount of tension he puts on that steer's head determines where that steer goes from there. So there's hundreds of variables that can happen during a team roping run because you have 5 brains
Sure.
trying to make it all work into one.
I mean, it truly is a team. It's not a solo act.
True.
That's huge.
Yeah.
As far as a team.
And dangerous. I mean, if one person does something wrong, it could be. So are the steers kind of raised for that purpose then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They are. We use mostly Coriani or Longhorn steers, but most of them are Coriani, and they're bred to be they'll have a little longer legs. They won't be so stocky and stout, say as beef cattle that we raise for meat. They have longer legs and a more even stride, and they work very well for team roping.
Something I just thought was interesting at the ranch was, the smaller pen, and they're trying to rope their feet, but all of these baby calves were in one corner.
Yes, ma'am.
And trying to get one of them, rather than 2 or 3 at a time, it can't be easy.
It's there's so much more to it than just running in there and roping the feet. There's the old cowboys that have been doing this, every year for most of their life, and they can run in there and they'll just pick out a calf and maneuver them to where they can rope the feet and they don't hardly miss. It's amazing, really. But there's actually a goal that you have to set up your shots if you want. You rope right-handed, so you obviously want the calf in a certain spot, and then if you push your horse this way and the calf goes this way, there's a certain spot where you can rope.
It almost seemed like some of it was kind of roping the ground, like at least get the rope near them, and then if they step in it,
yes, ma'am,
kind of pull it. That was kind of...
In the arena, I'm doing the same thing. I'm throwing my loop down on the ground, but he's hopping, and so it's almost heeling. You can describe kind of like jump rope. The steer cannot go into the loop unless his feet are off the ground and the bottom of your rope goes on the ground.
I mean, I don't want to say it looks easy because it doesn't. I'm not saying that, but that's,
the professionals make it look easy.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part when you're at an amateur level, is trying to get to where it is easy.
Sure, and that's kind of with anything. The kids coming into the program, onto the rodeo team, I assume they've been doing this for a while at least. Like, this is not a beginner level sport here.
Most of them have been doing it since they were little bitty. Since they were old enough to ride a horse by themselves. And
do most of them grow up on a ranch? I mean, I assume they have to kind of be introduced to it at that young age.
A lot of them do, but not necessarily. Jake, our bull rider here, didn't grow up on a ranch, but it's not necessary. But the background is that most kids, especially in the roping and riding events where they have horses. And
I don't know if you know of like the history of it, but so did rodeo basically come from the ranch? I mean, was it just we kind of show off our skills? Was it, how did that kind of come about?
Yes, ma'am. That's what they say, is it come about as, cowboys wanting to show off their skills and sort of competition of I can do this faster than you, or I can do this better than you, or I can ride this bronc longer than you, or tame the wild bronc type thing, and that's kind of where rodeo got started.
Okay. It's very logical. I mean, it works.
Now, bull riding may be the only one that wasn't really,
how do you do that? Yeah.
Why?
It's a neat deal to see these kids come from all over the world. Mostly North America. We'll have several kids coming in from Canada next year, and we have a Brazilian kid as well. And so it's neat to recruit from several different areas. And
do they have different styles?
I would say a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of regional style.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I mean, the Brazilian bull riders are phenomenal. You see them in the professional bull riders on TV. But yeah, I would say it's regional. You see some slight differences, but in general, it's the same idea.
Okay.
Rodeo in general is the same idea, and it's really neat too because a lot of these horses that we use they're actually cow-bred horses, meaning the cutting disciplines and some of the reining disciplines. The breeding is so much different than, say, the thoroughbred industry, where they're running a mile and a half tracks. Even the quarter horse, straight quarter mile racing at the track those horses.
Wait, is that why it's called quarter horse?
But that's what it means. Is the quarter horses are bred. They're really quick.
Okay.
for a quarter mile, and then they're done. In the cutting industry, you're cutting a cow. The cow steps this way, you jump in front. The cow goes back the other way.
Cutting in front of it. I'm learning so much tonight.
Yeah, you jump in front of that cow and cut it back the other way. And so these horses are just phenomenal. They're so athletic. It's crazy. But they're also bred to be extremely smart. They lock onto that cow and they do it themselves. And then so you put a mix of that. Even the barrel horses can be cowy, is what we kind of call it, where they see that barrel and they want to rate and come around it instead of just flying right by it.
Okay.
So it's really neat. They're very, very smart. Sometimes they're too smart for their own good, because they start anticipating.
Sure.
And, that's all part of what we get to do with these kids. And a lot of times, it doesn't matter what event we're doing, whether it's barrel racing or team roping or calf roping, you're slowing things down for that horse. We use these dummies sometimes on these kids' best horses to where instead of just run, they get accustomed to that, and you bring them back in here during the week and you slow their brain down, slow the dummies down to where they can track.
And that's not easy to do once you're used to something fast.
It's not. They do want to run.
Because it's like, being in a musical, if you're learning a dance, to learn it and then slow it down and try to teach someone else is not easy.
That's right.
Because your mind gets used to just doing it. That's really cool.
Yep.
So bull riding. He uses a mechanical bull when he trains himself. How often does he get to train with the real thing?
Right now we're bucking once a week.
Okay.
Usually just once a week, sometimes twice.
That's enough. That's all you need.
If they're traveling a bunch once a week, you leave town on Thursday, and then you might get on 3 or 4 over the weekend. Give yourself a couple days to heal up.
Where do you get a bull to train on?
We've got a contractor that either takes bulls to the rodeos or the bull riding, professional bull riding and stuff.
And are they bred for that too? Is that their
Yes, ma'am.
main purpose? Okay.
Yeah, you'll see. Out on the ranch at CJ's, you mentioned, do you have some Hereford bulls?
He had some Hereford.
So, they're red and white and usually have horns that kind of curl around. Yeah, they're huge, and they're bred to be, big bone and carry a lot of meat on that animal. And where these bulls, you'll see, they're a little slimmer and in shape, and they're maybe a lot more athletic, and they can jump high and turn. For example, I'm not really as big of a bulldogging coach because I've never been a steer wrestler. I'm a smaller type of guy. I was a bull rider and a bareback rider, and now I'm a team rope. But when I first came and seen the kids that I had, help them with their steer wrestling, and we had mechanical dummies to help them, and to see them slide and do their deal, and that fired me up because they were getting good at their craft, even though it wasn't my craft. It's so much fun to jump in and help people that are good at what they do.
Oh yeah.